I actually want to talk about something. I want to talk about knowing the difference between men who fetishize alternative and goth women versus a man who is genuinely interested in the subculture, and how to know the difference, because this is important. And I think that there is a big rise in the fetishization of alternative and goth women ever since around 2019. I have theories on this, but that's a different story. So, first example of a man who might be fetishizing you versus a man who is interested in the subculture is he might see you as like a genre of woman. He might group you into e-girls. He might be into the idea of a manic pixie dream girl, and he doesn't see you as a friend. He sees you as a genre of woman, and not like somebody who he would want to keep around. So that is probably a man who is fetishizing you for your appearance. And another example of a man who might be fetishizing you is he is very into your physical appearance, and that is his main focus, and he doesn't really talk about your worldview, or he doesn't really talk about art or music, but he is very interested in your outfits, your makeup, etc. That might be a man who is fetishizing you. Another example of a man who likes the idea of like an alternative woman versus actually being into the subculture is he might make jokes at your expense. Like, if things get too abstract or niche or different, he might kind of make you feel weird or like bad about what you like, rather than, you know, trying to understand it. And I think an example of this is once I went to a fetish goth club on my birthday with my ex, and he was very visibly uncomfortable that I was in full latex dommy. He was uncomfortable dancing. It was just, he was very not cool with what was happening, but he liked the idea of having an alternative model girlfriend. And the same person also told me that if I cut my bangs, he would break up with me, because there is the stereotype of the alternative woman with bangs. So that was a man that I saw was fetishizing me rather than appreciating me as a individual. Another example of this is once I was telling somebody I'm really, really interested in Tom Hiddleston. He's like one of my favorite actors. I loved him in Only Lovers Left Alive. I loved him in Crimson Peak, like classic vampire and gothic romance movies, and I really liked Loki because Loki is a mainstream goth character, and this man told me that Tom Hiddleston has a punchable face. So I think that was a man who wasn't actually into the subculture, but he likes the idea of an alternative woman. Now, a man who is actually interested in the subculture might bring up things like music festivals. They might bring up things like Wave Gothic Treffen. They might bring up things like local goth nights. Like we used to have Dark Energy, rest in peace. And now the closest to that is Sanctum Chicago. And they might bring up like music festivals like Cruel World. And bonus points is if he is willing to go travel to those things with you. Girl, buy a fucking ring. I'm joking. Not really. Another example of a man who is not fetishizing you and who is actually interested in the subculture is if he doesn't sexualize you right away. He's not into like, oh, this alternative woman, she's probably freaky, you know, she's probably into chains and whips, and I think that's a dangerous stereotype for alternative women, because not all alternative women are into that. Some of us are, but not everybody is, and I think that's not cool to put everybody into that group. And another example of a man who is actually genuinely interested in the subculture is if he might be into DIY, he might be into like making his own t-shirts, he might be into like printing his own t-shirts. That is a man who is probably into the subculture. He might collect vinyl, you know, things of that nature. Another example of a man who is into the subculture is if he is able to teach me about things. Like, I learned about Twitch DJs. Like, I had no idea that that was a thing, and now I watch Sisters of Monday almost every Monday because of that. And we used to have MTV, and we don't have MTV anymore, but there are Twitch channels that play music videos from the 80s and like goth nights and stuff like that. So if they are able to teach you more things, that is a man who is into the subculture and probably not fetishizing you. Another example of a man who is interested in the subculture is he goes to local shows, he supports his local music scene, fucking obviously. He might also be very interested in things like going to small theaters, seeing like cool films at like, I don't know, old theaters that usually the average person doesn't know about. But that is a hobby that I like, and that is a hobby that somebody introduced me to who was actually into the subculture. So, yes, there is a difference, and I think it's important to know the difference. And yeah, you deserve to be appreciated for who you are, and not what you look like. And you deserve to not be put into a stereotype because you are special. And yeah, go be a little weirdo because you are some dream person's freaking living dead girl.